What is up guys, it's Agent Juicy, and today I'm going to be basically comparing these two devices, the BlackBerry Q10 and the BlackBerry Classic. Both of these devices are quite unique and they have their own little things to it that I actually really enjoy. So I'm going to compare them and I'm going to show the differences. If you're looking for like a really specific video with like, oh, it's a MS2859 processor with like 2 gigabytes of RAM clocked at 400 megahertz. If you're looking for that specific stuff, I'm not going to go too much into the numbers of it, but I'm going to compare the overall aspect of it, because no one actually remembers the numbers. They actually remember how big it actually is. That being said, however, this video is going to compare load times, the hardware, the size of the phone, the screen displays, stuff like the keyboard, some benchmarks, also as well some ease of accessibility, some things that I really like about one over the other. Stuff like that, pretty much. I hope you guys get the idea. That being said, let's get this video on the road. So let's look at some load times for the overall of the BlackBerry Classic versus the BlackBerry Q10. They both have the same exact processor and same amount of RAM. So let's see how all of this translates to opening apps. So let's check some load time for applications using the BlackBerry device. That being said, let's open up the music app just to see. It's almost identical. I don't really see a big difference between these two. So let's open up the camera. Let's launch the camera from here. So let's camera button. Nearly identical. The Q10, you saw the focus square appear faster, but it was like almost minuscule. So minuscule that it doesn't even matter. So let's open up the weather app, because that actually takes some time to load. Opened it up. You can see the Classic was slightly faster, but overall not that big of a difference. Like, it was so small, 1/100th of a second faster. Let's launch Instagram to see how much faster they are. I haven't opened these apps in quite a while, so it'll definitely be quite interesting. So you see the white screen appear first, and then you see the other one appear after, and there you go. So let's see which device restarts or boots up the fastest. Again, like I said, both of these devices are unlocked. Both of these devices have the same exact processor and the same amount of RAM, so it should be nearly identical. That being said, they're running the same 10.3 OS, well, sort of. So while these phones are booting up and we're looking to see which one boots up the first, let's compare a couple things. Firstly, the hardware. Basically everything on these two devices on the inside is identical except for the antennas. This has a lot more bands. This does not have the amount of bands. The software is almost identical. The Q10 has something different on it. Don't want to go into. So you guys could see the Classic loaded up faster, and the reason I'm saying that it actually loaded up quite a bit faster, maybe like 10-20 seconds faster, is because this actually has a lot more Android applications on it versus this one. But in the real world, 15 seconds, 10 seconds, is it going to make a huge difference to you? I don't think so. So it's almost identical. I decided to run a couple bench LTE tests score against the Classic against the Q10, and what I've noticed was the Q10 scored better for downloads and the Classic scored better for uploads. The Geekbench score, you know, the Classic outperformed it, but I mean, by 2 points for a single core, really? And if you look at the multi-core score, it's 924 versus 933. Like I said, it's under 10, so it's like, it's so minuscule. What's that? That's like less than 5%, you know. So it's not really that big of a difference in terms of Geekbench score. Now, if you wanted to like be really impressed, you know, like I said, this is all software. Both of these are two different versions of software, but they both run 10.3. You can see the compress and decompress rates. It's a bit almost identical for both of these devices. Sometimes the Q10 is a little, it scores a little bit higher than the BlackBerry Classic, and sometimes the BlackBerry Classic scores a little bit higher than the Q10. So it's all subjective, and both the scores are almost nearly identical, not big of a difference. Now let's look at some AnTuTu benchmark. This test actually tests everything out of both of these devices, and I think this is the fairest test of them all. So now let's compare the actual dimensions of the BlackBerry Classic and the Q10. So like I said, I'm not going to go too much in depth with that stuff, but if you look closely, you can actually see both of these devices are actually leveled here at the top. You can see how much wider it actually is. It's just like minuscule wider, and you can actually see the height. The height is actually the big difference. Both of these devices are quite comfortable to hold in the hand, and I actually really enjoy using it for one-handed use. That being said, however, if you guys want to get a little more technical with the numbers and stuff like that, in terms of height, it's actually 11 millimeters wider, or 1.1 centimeters longer. Not wider. In terms of width, the actual width, how wide it actually is, it's about 6 millimeters wider. And in terms of actual thickness, and this is the really interesting bit, if you were to look at the side of it and see which one's actually fatter, or, you know, in terms of thickness, the BlackBerry Q10 is 0.1 millimeters thicker. Let's get that straight. Not 1 millimeter, 0.1 millimeters thicker. So it's almost identical in terms of thickness. Now, in terms of actually holding these devices in the hand, like I said, it's easy to hold with one hand, no problem whatsoever.
Turning to the BlackBerry Q10, the screen size display is 3.1 inches long. And turning to the Classic, it's 3.5 inches
long, and it's an LCD, and this is an OLED. So in terms of actual brightness, the LCD gets a lot brighter than the OLED, and at 0%, meaning when it's all turned down, as you can see in this picture, the OLED is brighter than the LCD. That being said, colors look a lot nicer on the Q10, but in terms of brightness and stuff like that, I'd have to say the Classic wins that. Also, this has Gorilla Glass 3, forgot to tell you guys, so you're also protected on the front. The resolution of this display is 720 long by 720 wide, and the resolution of this display is 720 long, 720 wide. This spits out about 329 ppi, this spits out about 294 ppi. Is there a difference, you ask? Yes, there is a difference. When I'm looking at white and I'm looking at blue on the BlackBerry Classic, you can actually see the pixels. If you hold it really close to your face as well, you could see the pixels on the Classic. The screen is not as pixel dense, or it's not as, you don't get that really smooth image. You get a pretty decent image, but if you were to look at it on the Classic has everything that you could possibly dream about. So text, numbers, wording, lettering, everything looks a lot better on the Classic. However, you get a bigger display with this. So let's look at something. If you were to look at the Monday, December 29th, I'm not sure the camera's going to pick it up. And if you look at the Monday, December 29th on here, the Monday, December 29th, you don't really see the pixels, but if you were to look at the white spots, you actually see the pixels with your eye. If you're lying in bed and you're watching the display at night, you're gonna see the pixels on the emails, on everything else. But if you're like, you know, maybe 3 feet away, or, you know, a good arm's length away, you're not really gonna see the pixels, but on certain displays and certain things, you'd actually pick up on the pixels. Now let's talk about something else. Now, if you were to look at some of the resolution on certain apps like, you know, the text message app, or, you know, the World app, you'd actually see it's a bit jaggedy on the Classic compared to the Q10. And like I said, all related to the pixels. So I'm just letting you guys know, if you're looking for a really good display, even though it's a lot brighter and a lot nicer to look at, expect some, you know, at times to actually appear to see some pixels. What I've noticed over the past week, I sort of like ignored or, you know, looked over it, but when I look at email and stuff like that, you'd actually see that that really weird layout of the pixels.
Now let us quickly turn our attention to how pages actually look on the BlackBerry Classic versus the Q10. As you can see, the same amount of words is displayed, the same amount of content is displayed on yahoo.com, the same amount on Gizmodo, maybe a little bit of the pictures actually seen, and on TMZ it's exactly the same place that cuts off. However, you could read a little more of the words that's actually listed on TMZ, the page, but if you look closely, you still struggle to actually see it, so which means you have to zoom in to actually read the content, whether it be on the BlackBerry Q10 or on the BlackBerry Classic.
So now let's talk about the keyboards on these two devices. The BlackBerry Classic, the keys are a lot larger. They also are much more raised when compared to the Q10. The Q10 has a lot more, I don't want to say concise, but almost like it's really tight-knit. Your fingers are, you know, it's fine to type with, there's no problems whatsoever. When typing, what I've noticed was the actual Classic keyboard is a lot nicer to type on. That being said, in terms of clickability or noise from the actual keyboard, I don't know if you guys could hear this. The clicks on the Classic keyboard is a lot nicer compared to the BlackBerry Q10. The BlackBerry Q10 is a lot softer than this. This one actually feels like it's actually pressing. Now let's look and talk about the BlackBerry camera. To the front of the devices, we have a 2 megapixel on both of these devices. Both of them film at 720p, high def, full resolution, blah blah blah. You know, it takes good zoom, it zooms into 3 times. Both of these are same. It's identical. There's nothing different between them. Now let's look to the back. You might be wondering, they did something here. New phone, you know, old phone, 2013, 2014. New camera, right? Wrong. 8 megapixel here, 8 megapixel here, same at f2.2 for both of these devices. Same exact LED flash. In fact, if you were to even look closely, one might even say it looks like the same camera module. Yes, you are right. So all the big difference between these two devices is one actually has Classic on it with the line that has a raised back, and one just has this glass weave slash, it looks like carbon fiber, but it's not. Now, if you were to take a picture, what I've noticed was pictures look a lot brighter on the display of the BlackBerry Classic. And that's because, like I said, everything looks brighter. So you might be wondering, is there a big difference in picture quality? You guys let me know. I took a couple pictures and some video samples. You be the judge. So far you guys are probably wondering, wow, this is like really identical, right? What's the big difference? So we're gonna get to that in a second. Now, if you were to look at the bottom of these devices at the base there, you could actually see the speaker grills. One is a real speaker, and one is a microphone for the BlackBerry Classic. And you can see that's the Classic, the one with the silver band. One's a real speaker, one's a microphone. With the BlackBerry Q10, however, you have just one speaker grill, but that does not mean it lacks a microphone, because if you look closely, if you guys look closely, you can actually see the microphone here, the speaker grill here. So which one sounds better? So if you were to listen to music using the BlackBerry Classic or a radio, and you wanted to know how much louder it actually is, it's actually not that much louder. The equalizers were set to the same, you know, the same settings. What I did notice, however, in terms of clarity, you know, in terms of like listening to a sky full of stars, the Q10 sounds slightly better, but you have to really listen closely to actually hear it. It's slightly better. That's because it has a lot more perforated holes for the speaker to actually breathe versus this one. It just has a small speaker. And what do I mean by that? If you look closely to the BlackBerry Q10, I'm speaking about the Q10, so I'll put it here. So if you were to look at the BlackBerry Q10's speaker grill, what I've noticed was, if this is a speaker grill, what I've noticed was like here, here, here. It has like 3 perforated real holes. The rest is like, it has holes here, here, and here. But what I've noticed is that has like 3 perforated holes, so it gets a lot better. The audio just sounds better versus in the BlackBerry Classic, all it has is just holes all over to breathe. So basically, for some reason, audio sounds a lot better coming from the Q10 versus the Classic. But in terms of loudness, both of these devices are equally loud. Audio's quite clear, everything is quite clear and nice to listen to.